My goal going into surgery was to be the hottest and tannest med-surg patient, and I was the youngest patient there by like 50 years.
Maybe there's somebody out there that's in my shoes that doesn't really want to ask because they don't want to feel like a selfish asshole.
Everybody's story is valid. Everybody's cancer story is valid.
Welcome to Talk Cancer to Me. Side effects of this podcast may include chemo brain, what we equate to the human version of glitching, inappropriately oversharing, unprofessional lounging, and profanity.
Hi, and welcome to Talk Cancer to Me. I'm Melinda.
I'm Hope.
And I'm Olivia.
We are three friends that were diagnosed with an ultra-rare cancer that only occurs in 1 in a million people. Because our cancer affects such few people, a lot of us bond pretty quickly with each other, but that's a concept I think is not very rare to anybody with the big C. At the time of our diagnosis, we were all young women navigating normal young adult things like being in relationships. Hope is a single mother of 3 amazing boys. We were working, we were socializing, we were dating, just trying to be normal people. So we had to deal with the shock of getting diagnosed with a pretty life-changing diagnosis and all the things that come with it. We originally met in a Facebook support group for our diagnosis, but our bond definitely grew a lot more when we started texting each other, which eventually turned into unfiltered voice memos. And we realized that we had a lot of questions that our oncologists couldn't answer and wouldn't answer. And so we became kind of a lifeline for each other, just talking about all things related to cancer and unrelated to cancer. And then we also realized that a lot of people had the same concerns that we did. And so we decided to start a podcast. So I'm Melinda. I was diagnosed with adrenal cortical carcinoma, also known as ACC, when I was 32 years old. They found it because my tumor was active, meaning it was secreting hormones. Mine was secreting cortisol. So in addition to having cancer, I developed Cushing's syndrome, which means like a brown face. And that was kind of like the big one, the big symptom that I had that I was concerned about. There are a lot of other little things which we'll get into later. And it took me going to a lot of physicians to finally find someone that would order a scan, but eventually found the person that would do that and got the scan back, confirmed there was definitely a tumor. At first, they didn't think it was malignant. Ended up going to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota for surgery. It was confirmed that it was malignant. My tumor was 24 centimeters when they took it out. I was doing well, healing pretty well, but within 3 months, it came back all over my spine, hips, liver, lungs, and shoulder. And that's what I've been fighting since. So I've been through radiation, chemo pills. Oh, I meant to say after surgery, I was on a chemo pill. When it came back, I was on radiation. I went through infusion chemo as well. I've had a couple of ablations, and then finally I was put on immunotherapy with a supportive chemo pill, and I have been stable since going on that. I have also had some shrinkage, but where I am now, my tumors do not light up on a PET scan, so they're there, but they're not really doing anything. And I've been stable like this for about 3 years.
I was diagnosed when I was 27 in July 2022. I went to the hospital because I was having persistent chest pain. The first day I was turned away. And then the second day, they ended up doing a CT and finding a 13 centimeter tumor on my adrenal gland. It was also during COVID, so no one was allowed in with me. So I was diagnosed by myself. Eventually, my now ex-boyfriend came in and was there for that news. They didn't let him in until after, when I was pretty hysterical. But I had surgery to remove my adrenal gland and the tumor, and I was in the hospital for about 5 days. I always laugh now because my goal going into surgery was to be the hottest and tannest med-surg patient, and I was the youngest patient there by like 50 years. Like I would make my rounds and everyone was like 80 plus. I since then I've had a recurrence to my lungs and my liver, and I'm now on my fourth type of chemotherapy, and I'm also on an immunotherapy every 3 weeks. I've also done radiation, and things are mostly stable. I've had a little bit of growth, and by September I will be getting a new scan and see if I need to change treatments.
Okay, so I was diagnosed in September of 2022. Stage two, I went in, I was having symptoms for a year leading up to my, the finding. Um, Swollen joints, bruising, really high blood pressure was like one of the biggest things. And then one day I couldn't breathe. Like I was literally gasping for air after 3 steps. So I went to the ER, similar to Olivia. I got turned down that night. Went to another ER the next day. They did a ultrasound actually because I was having pain in the middle of like my abs, and that's when they found the mass. And then they did a CT, and then so the results were I had a 9 centimeter tumor on my adrenal gland. I had surgery about a month later. They had to get my blood pressure under control. And then so I had my surgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. And then I started chemotherapy. Well, it's a form of chemotherapy that I'm still currently taking called mitotane. I take that. I take 12 pills a day, which is a super high dose. It seems to be keeping everything at bay for me. I haven't had a reoccurrence. I'll be at 3 years NED on October 12th. So it's coming up, and I have just been doing scans every 12 weeks. So every 12 weeks, I'm still doing my surveillance scans, and that'll probably go on for another couple years. So,
And for people who don't know, Hope, can you explain what NED means?
yeah, so NED is no evidence of disease. So we all get surveillance scans after this cancer just because it's a cancer that can creep up really quickly. So we get the surveillance scans and they look for any tumors or nodules in your organs. So NED means no evidence of disease. So it has not returned. About a year ago, or a little bit more than a year, about a year and a half ago, the three of us founded the Adrenal Cure Collective, which is a nonprofit. Our mission is to raise $1 million for research for ACC. This is, as everybody has alluded to, a very rare cancer, so we do not receive the funding that other large cancers receive. Last year, we donated $60,000 to the National Institutes of Health here in Bethesda, Maryland, where I'm actually in a study there for this cancer. But they do wonderful work there. And our goal is to raise money for research. At this current time, it's the NIH and a couple of other institutions, but we're also like desperate and hoping for a cure. That our goal is to just simply raise money for research. And we are going to continue to chase after, the most groundbreaking research out there, and support where it's necessary. But the three of us, we saw that there was a lane for us for funding. It's not an easy lane because like asking for money isn't always the easiest. But we do have some very supportive groups in the patient support side, like global health side. We have some other sister organizations that are doing excellent work there. But the research is critical. And so the three of us we have couple other board members there, but we have some great people that have helped us, to build this organization, and we just plan to continue to grow and to continue to try to fund research in every way possible. It's definitely helped me find some purpose in all of this because I know that it's a horrible disease, and by us doing our part, and not just it's hard, right? It's hard to even just get up after a diagnosis like that, but it's helpful for me, and I think that everybody would agree, to just be able to pour our time into something that we feel could potentially help find something, additional treatment option.
Yeah, agreed for me too. I think everybody in my life. So I moved home and moved in with my mom when I was diagnosed, and she was my primary caretaker. And I was not in a great headspace for a while. And then when we started Adrenal Cure Collective, I think it was a big change for me. Just like being able to use my voice and share my story to help other people. And I am one of those rare cases where, it spread all over my body and immunotherapy worked for me. Like that's not the case with everybody, but a lot of times people come to me when they're starting immunotherapy, like within our community, and it's nice to be able to like share my story and like also empathize with other people. And it's just giving me a lot of extra motivation to keep going. But I'm not going to say like there weren't times when I needed to pause and take a step back too, because cancer is heavy and like we all need to take breaks sometimes.
When I was diagnosed, I searched really hard for a podcast, specifically other young adults going through it, going through cancer, and just wanting to hear someone say that they related to how I was feeling to make me feel not even just less alone, but like not crazy. And there just weren't that many. So I think my hope with making this is just that anyone could listen and relate to some part of it. I think that in the cancer community, we can relate to people that are like 80 years old because it's such a unique experience. And I think there's a lot of shared grief and trauma, but also like drive for just enjoying your normal life and still being a human and wanting to connect with people and find commonalities. So that's my goal with this.
I too was looking for people that had similar situations or people like me that were going through this. And then, the doctors, you have like an hour in the, treatment room with them and you're talking about your diagnosis and then you have your follow-ups, but then like in between these appointments life happens, right? And then we don't know what to do. So I found with my fellow cancer patients a place to talk about like what happens in between diagnosis and treatment and all the medical side of things. So that's my goal, is to really just dive into like real life and the things that we've encountered since our diagnosis. And hopefully, people will, it'll resonate with somebody out there that's looking for answers.
Yeah, and we've talked about this too. One of the things that we really want to do is bring on some professionals, physicians that can answer the questions that we had. So, for example, all three of us, we'll talk about this in later podcasts, but all three of us were in relationships when we were diagnosed, and we were trying to navigate that, but there's really no handbook for it, right? Like there's no right or wrong way to deal with it. But I don't think, being a young woman like in our 20s and 30s, like we were just not prepared to handle that at all. And I don't think our partners were either. And so we talk about the idea of bringing on like relationship therapists or couples therapists, and then also maybe having like an OBGYN, because there's a lot of changes your body goes through when you're on chemo. And like, for example, when I asked questions about that, the conversation was specifically around fertility. And I don't want kids and never have wanted kids. And that's just kind of where the conversation ended. And I was not prepared for everything that happened to my body during and after chemo. So I think we definitely want to help make sure that we're getting your questions answered and our questions answered too, because I feel like I still have a lot of questions.
Yeah, I think there's little conversation about even just like, I mean, yeah, changes that would affect maybe your sex life, but also like weight changes, body changes. I mean, I'm just thinking of all of the the things that change when you get diagnosed, and it's like navigating relationships and friendships and love, and then yeah, like sex and libido, and how chemo or treatment can affect your brain and your memory. And I mean, there's just so many sides that I don't think are often talked about. And yeah, I do think that the conversation is often directed at fertility instead of these are other things that you could experience, but then you do experience them and then you feel completely isolated and alone until you meet other people going through it and you realize it's so common. And why isn't it talked about more in the medical system?
We're here to talk about real stuff. Like, we're not going to throw anybody under the bus, but like we've been through a lot of trauma through this. But I think the thing that the three of us realized when we started growing our bond is that our individual stories weren't rare, and like the things we went through in our relationships weren't rare. Like partners don't know how to respond to this, and there is no manual for how to do it, and each person is so different that each person is going to respond differently. And so like for me, I feel like I had to like learn a lot about like setting boundaries, and like maybe not being like not setting too harsh of boundaries because that, pushes people away, and like finding that balance. So yeah, I think like we have a lot of things that we're gonna be able to explore.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting topic too, because I think our families and our friends are more like intrinsically, even if they're not prepared, just like down to roll with what's happening in your life. And I think some partners aren't. And that was definitely something. I mean, all three of us are not with the people we were with when we were diagnosed, right? And then I think there's something to be said about that. And not to necessarily shame anyone, but it's I think it's a good thing for other people to hear who maybe don't have cancer. So if they ever encounter that in their life, just like how to show up and support somebody. And
Yeah, I mean, you have a crazy supportive family, Liv, but like I know for me, like even friends and family, like that's a whole nother episode. I'm happy to lead that one because yeah,
that's
like
true.
I like consider yourself lucky if you have that because it's kind of weird. Like tough times really show you who's there for you. And like Mel said, it's not talk, throw anybody under a bus, but it's real life. And like so you're not shocked when it happens, or if you're going through it, like tune into us because we're gonna like pull back the layers and talk about it all.
Yeah, and these are themes that you start to see when you are kind of immersed in the cancer community. Like when you hear from people about ghosting through friendships and
Yep.
um
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think everyone it's such a unique experience, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know how to handle it or are afraid of it. And obviously
Yeah.
it's scary and we were afraid of it too, but then you find a way to keep going and humanize yourself. And yeah, I mean, it's yeah.
And I feel like that's like the theme of this podcast. Is you just said humanize ourselves. It's like that's the whole foundation of this. It's like how do we actually get back to like living and being a human again with this like horrible diagnosis? That's like a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back too to like our tagline, um, which is we're still hot and we're still here, because I know there were points in my life where I felt like I was kind of being memorialized, but I was still alive. And I was like, hey, like, I'm still here. And like, yeah, I was, at times bald and looked like garbage. And not to say that everybody who's bald looked like garbage. I had a rough time. I had Cushing syndrome on top of losing my hair. I had like a million symptoms at one time. I just felt horrible. And like I just want people to know like you can still be beautiful and you can still come back from that. Like it is not necessarily always going to be the end. And I think like the three of us are all living proof of that.
Yeah, and I think cancer itself is kind of a taboo topic because it implies like death and dying, and maybe sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
where someone's cancer journey goes. But I think culturally, I think we shy away from really hard topics. So I think cancer itself is one of them, and I think it's a unique experience, but it's not unique to how many people it affects. So I
Yeah.
think
Mm-hmm.
normalizing it in a sense, and yeah, creating a way for people to share that experience and make it, I don't know, less intimidating and scary and isolating, because there's so many people that can relate to all of the feelings that we
Yeah.
go through.
And I think even like for me, like as an early stage patient, I feel like guilt when I'm wondering about something that seems like so small in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? Like with I see my fellow warriors like having advanced disease and really fighting hard. And so I kind of feel sometimes like selfish asking for, about the things that come along with, the chemo that I'm on because I'm doing relatively well. But I mean, at the same time, it's like I'm still living. And so maybe there's somebody out there that's in my shoes that doesn't really want to ask because they don't want to feel like a selfish asshole. But yeah, I mean, like, that's the real for me is too. It's like sometimes I don't even want to bring these things up because I'm like, I'm just grateful to be where I'm at. But like at the same time, I still want to know how to navigate through the phase that I am in, you know?
Everybody's story is valid. Everybody's cancer story is valid, whether you've experienced cancer or you were supporting somebody going through it, or if it's a parent or whatever. I think cancer affects it affects so many people, but it affects us all in such a different way. And so I hope that for you, Hope, on this podcast, you will bring up those questions, because if you have them, then somebody else has them too.
Yeah.
And you're never offending me, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to say too is just in general, like, we want this to be a very inclusive space. Like, obviously, we are three young women, so we hope to bring guests on who can speak maybe to other demographics as well. We want to make sure that all voices are heard, and we want to make sure everybody feels comfortable asking us questions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we want to be a podcast where anyone can tune in, whether you're a caregiver or you're a friend that's curious and wants to support another friend, or you're someone going through cancer, whatever stage or place that you're at. We just want it to be like a really welcome place for everyone to land and yeah, have questions, be curious, and also get to hear our perspective and a bunch of other voices.
For now, our plan is to post a podcast episode every 2 weeks. So be on the lookout for that. We're also very busy with the nonprofit. We're planning our yearly weekend of events called ACC Warrior Weekend. So as we're prepping for that, we're a little bit busy right now. So maybe we'll revisit the frequency of our podcasts again in the future. But we'd also love to hear from you. So if there's a certain topic that you would love us to cover, if there's anybody listening that has maybe a mental health professional or some type of practitioner in their life that you think would be great on the show, feel free to reach out to us, or they can reach out to us directly at talkcancertome@gmail.com. Again, that's with the number 2, not the letter. So talkcancertome@gmail.com. Our website will live at adrenalcurecollective.org/podcast. And then you can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok as well. And on the website, we also have our personal social medias linked if you'd like to connect with us personally and follow our journeys.